Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up. We are back with another episode of the Marketing Millennials podcast. I am here with Amanda Cole, CMO of Bloomreach. I'm excited to chat with her today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I want you to give a little background how you got into marketing, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, I got into marketing very much by chance. I was a very young mom, and it was hard to find jobs with flexible opportunities. I started working for a company called Business Intelligence Group. Michael Alisea was the founder there, and he was looking for someone to help him process direct mail responses for a couple very large nonprofits that did. I mean, this was 22 years ago. So we were getting direct mail responses for solicitations, like, at the holidays when you get stamps or return address labels. And my job was to collect the mailed in responses and the paper checks and validate which option got more donations.
Sounds like everybody. I swear I talk to so many marketers, and it's always like such a interesting entry into marketing, and that's one of the interesting. And people forgot like how marketing used to be, where it was just such a manual process. Luckily now we will talk a little bit about it, but AI has helped a lot. I want to go into the conversation that we have today and I think this is a pretty interesting conversation because I've never talked about this on my podcast, but I want you to explain how you think about working backwards to get a pipeline number. Like, what is the math behind it? I don't think a lot of people dig into it because sometimes numbers are not the most exciting thing, but it's so important to make sure you win in marketing. So let's just go into first the starting point, how you think about it. Where does that number come from? And then we can go into the breakdown of it.
Oh yeah, I can geek out on pipeline math. I think it is one of the reasons why potentially I'm so good at my job. Maybe it's the only reason, but because when you can connect marketing back to the revenue number, we're all responsible for growth. We're all responsible for outcomes in the business, but marketing, especially in the B2B space, is responsible for making sure that the sales team has enough to work with to have a really good chance of hitting that revenue number. And if every conversation you have as a marketer ties back to how does what I'm doing deliver a revenue number, your conversations, certainly with finance and sales, get a lot easier. And so pipeline math is the idea that starting with the revenue number and the growth targets, what are the levers that you need to be aware of that you can pull to work backwards from that revenue number? And so in B2B, it's things like, what is our win rate? Win rate is the number of closed won deals divided by the total number of closed deals in a quarter. So what's our win rate? That tells us how many open deals or open opportunities we need. And then you back up from there, how many conversations does it take for us to get deals? And you back up from there, how many people do we have to talk to get the right kinds of conversations? And one more, back up, how much do we need to spend and how many channels to get those numbers of contacts? And that's how you essentially build out the funnel of pipeline math that turns into targets and a budget and a contact target for plans for a marketing team that a finance team and a sales team can understand.
I want to take one step back and then we can get deeper. I think some people get caught up with over promising the first number, which is let's talk about we want to 2x, 3x, 4x growth. So when you're going into that meeting with the CFO and the CMO, not the CMO, but the CEO, and you're they're saying to you, Amanda, okay, how much growth do you think we could do this year? How do you get that number first, because that number is a lot important, because some people would be like, oh, for sure we could 3x, and then you like do the math, start doing the math going backwards, and it's like, wait, like we have some of these channels are actually capped out, and we might not hit this number. So I want to know that number first, and then we could talk about detail then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why pipeline math is so important, because I love a conversation. Every CEO and CFO wants to push as much growth as possible. We all do. I mean, especially in the software world, a lot of us are incentivized with partial ownership in the company, and our ownership becomes more valuable the more the company grows. And so we are incentivized to deliver growth, but growth also comes with investment. And that's why pipeline math is so awesome, because you can actually show how much investment is required to hit those growth targets. Because the other element of this is, how much did it cost us? So if you take what I said earlier, let's make it very simple. How much revenue do you need? So how many opportunities do you need? We track all the way down to the cost to generate an opportunity. So if you want to 3x your growth, then you need to 3x your opportunities. And that has a correlation to how much you actually need to spend and invest in order to generate that. So it does become a very mathematical conversation instead of it would be great if kind of conversation, which a lot of companies, especially in startup or early stage companies, can get into a debate like that with their teams. And it really comes down to, let's make the plan whatever we want to make it, but know that the investment needs to be appropriate size as well.
What do you find which part of the pipeline math do you find is like the hardest to forecast?
Well, I mean, again, the great news is you don't start with forecasting; you start with actuals. Now, obviously, if you're in a startup and you have no actuals, you have no data, there's a ton of benchmarks, and happy to share certainly some that I've used in the past. But there's certainly some pretty standard benchmarks of, like, MQL is dead now, but like, let's just say a marketing contact or an ICP contact into a meeting conversion, the number of meetings that convert into opportunities, the number of opportunities that convert into sales qualified opportunities, and then closed ones. So there's benchmark data available, but I highly recommend, if you even have at least a year of data, that you use your actual data. You say, what is our actual win rate? What is our actual conversion from opportunity from meeting into opportunity? Because that's the baseline. And of course, where you can get into conversations is on debates about where can we improve. And again, you would use benchmarks here. So if your meeting to sales opportunity, sales qualified opportunity is below the benchmark, you could make a decision and say, okay, we've identified some specific optimization areas, and we want to plan our pipeline targets for next year, assuming that our win rate gets better. Or you could say, actually, we don't have any plans to make this better. We didn't even know it was bad. Or there's some other dynamic, like maybe you're just in a very competitive market, or maybe you're aware that your product has gaps that you're not going to be able to fill in the next 6 months. So you're going to accept a lower than benchmark conversion rate, but that's what you're going to base the plan on in order to hit your ARR targets. So you don't necessarily have to get into an argument about feelings on those conversion metrics either.
Yeah, I'm also interested because I've seen this, because I used to be in marketing ops, but like, let's say like the win rate conversation of, okay, like we need to work back to get that opportunity number, but let's say like each ICP might have like a different, like if you separating, might have a different win rate, but also right, there could be like a couple of sales reps that are way overperforming those win rates that are like kind of outliers that are lifting up that number. That could screw you up if that person decides to go to the next company, or that person quits, and then you have to get ramping reps, and then you're like right, low. So how do you take out outliers? Do you forecast in, or do you lower it based on outliers? How do you do that win rate to make sure that, like, if the top 3 sales reps decide to like move to another company and that win rate goes down 3-4%, that means like yep, pipeline number is going to have to go up like
that's right,
3-4%.
That's right. Yeah, because exactly as you said, if a rep leaves, a new rep comes in, the rep who was ramped has a higher quota percent. A new rep who's coming in is going to have a lower conversion rate. And certainly they're going to take a longer time to ramp. And so we're really geeking out now at this point, but you can use the mean or the median, but this is where a marketer who knows this, who is in the details and who understands the data and is able to come back with an argument on why we chose the win rate. Now I can't even say it, that we chose are for these reasons. These are our strategic objectives. These are the verticals that we want to be in. And part of that is the recommendation that you're making. One of the things that we did in our planning cycle this year, we wanted to get into some new strategic verticals, and we had a worse win rate in those strategic verticals than our core. And so I actually carved out a % of our ARR. The finance team did not come back with a finance plan that was split by vertical. That would be entirely too nuanced for us to build an entire financial plan around that. But we did. We took our ARR plan and we said, let's assume that 20% comes from strategic verticals because last year it was 18%. And now we're going to make a concerted effort to increase the amount of revenue that comes from these new verticals. But our win rate is 7 points lower than in these strategic verticals than it is in our core verticals. And so we did actually split out the way that we look at targets based on the nuance of the win rates in those verticals. Similarly, we on the rep side, we do use our median because you want to exclude the really bad performers and the top performers.
I like that. I mean, because I think it always should be the nuanced stuff should always be in a marketing. Marketing should be doing those numbers separately and not getting it all messed up in a finance person's head, because the finance person just wants what is that percentage you what number are we doing here? I don't care that there's a rep that's leaving. I don't care about you want to grow in this vertical. Well, kind of they want to care. Some finance people want to say this is how much revenue is coming from, let's say this new vertical, but the win rate number you just need to, if you want to get more nuanced and say rep base and stuff like that, you don't need to show finance, that stuff. I think the other number that gets a little, I'm interested in how you plan it. So, okay, working backwards, so there's opportunities, but let's say as a marketer that Facebook or let's say Meta or LinkedIn might have some audience fatigue happening in this vertical. We were capping out audience fatigue or capping out this. And last year, the numbers show we cost per lead with this, but let's say LinkedIn is raising prices for what impressions or whatever's happening. How do you how are you thinking about because sometimes actuals could screw you up because how platforms work, numbers, audience fatigue, all that. So how are you working in those numbers to make sure you're not getting screwed over by the audience fatigue, platform rising costs, all those crazy things that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that is just part of the marketer's job is to understand the trends and what's impacting marketing. And the reality is, regardless of what's happening in the market, your cost per opportunity can't go up. Everybody in marketing, we know we need to do more with less. We need that cost per opportunity to decline year over year over year, because we want to see those efficiency gains at the top of the funnel and in demand generation, while we also see an increase in that spread between how much we need to spend in order to generate opportunities versus grow in revenue is part of the job of marketing. And so honestly, it doesn't matter if LinkedIn is screwing you over. You got to figure out how to be more efficient with your budget and generate more opportunities on a more efficient cost per opportunity. The good news is there are lots of resources, podcasts like this, that help you think about and be more creative. I do think audience segmentation and being really intentional with your audience. I think with all the AI tools that we have coming out now, where you can do a better job really identifying when people are potentially in market so that you're executing ads, certainly in paid social, at a more strategic time in the relationship. If you are doing more brand awareness ads, make sure that you're not doing it in super expensive channels, but where you can get reach and visibility and some of that subconscious impression, but without spending lots and lots of money to do it. So that I think is the core of the strategic thought process of a marketer. What is
your philosophy on split on budget split of like test budget versus like core trying to hit revenue budget versus, and we can go into a little bit of like brand versus like actual like capture. But the first I want to go into like how you think about test and like actual hit number budget.
Yeah, and we don't carve out a specific test budget, but we do a ton of testing, and it's certainly becoming one of my favorite ways to test now is certainly with synthetic data or digital twins, and to really like take replications or representations of an audience and test messaging and see how quickly we can actually gather insights and intelligence. There's a tool called Winter that is great in B2B that we love using from a message testing perspective. When it comes to testing approaches, we pretty much everything we roll out as a test. So there's nothing there. If we roll out a new demo request or if we roll out a new interactive video format, I think it's just in our nature to roll it out as a test. And that our technology is in the B2C space. So we deliver marketing automation or CRM for B2C companies, and B2C is incredible at testing. I mean, that is how they live and breathe. And so I think we've taken some pages out of their book.
My wife runs digital for Salt and Stone, and the amount of testing they do there is like crazy. And
everything is how big the dollar sign in the offer. I mean, they test literally everything.
And how good they are at like reporting like incremental, where things are actually coming. And I wish B2B could do it as well as they do it, because they know like, oh, if I did YouTube and this and this and this, like I have like a software or a math problem to solve any of these things. And it's crazy to see. But B2B like fell behind a long time ago because we just stuck with it. But I want to know your philosophy. Like, how are you like tracking where things are coming from? Like, what is your attribution philosophy, or like, because I think every marketer has a different attribution philosophy, or maybe like way they do it.
Yeah, we've all done U-shaped, W-shaped, weighted. We've all done curve. We've done all the different attribution models that you can possibly do. And at the end of the day, very rarely did they contribute in a significant or meaningful way to outcomes. And the benefit of B2C is that the purchase window is, a long one is 7 days. There are certainly some more considered purchases like furniture and things like that. But for the most part, in the B2C world, your conversion points are sub 48 hours. In B2B, it's a much longer extended window for us. We're in the enterprise, and so ours can range 9 to 12 months. And on average, we have 20 people involved in an opportunity. And so when you think about putting attribution against a marketing activity across 20 people in 9 to 12 months, it's almost impossible to say, here's what our strategy needs to look like in order to be able to replicate this. And further, the organizations themselves, because if you look at the data points of individuality in a company dynamic and then 20 people inside of that company, it's really, really hard to replicate the attributes of what made that an opportunity to begin with. So what I think about in attribution is the micro and the macro. So we look at very micro. Is the channel, is the campaign, is the message doing what it's supposed to be doing? And that's the micro. And then in the macro, is the customer journey moving in the shape and timeline and urgency that we expect it to? And so that's where you are able to kind of triangulate both things, that I know that my channel, my campaign, my message is performing at baseline or better, and that we constantly, consistently optimize for that in the micro. And then in the macro is the collective of all of these things, driving opportunities forward enough at the right clip. That's our win rate. And the timeline that we need it in, the age of our opportunities. I think we've done a great job in not mentioned AI for 20 minutes, but I wanted to ask you, how, like with AI, like how is it optimizing like this pipeline math, and how are you getting data faster to you to make quicker decisions? And what are you doing internally to
to do that? Or what are you doing? Let's just ask that question, then I'll ask you more AI questions after that.
We are super AIified. So one of my favorite tools, which I think is an augmentation for ops teams, it's made our marketing and our revenue ops teams 40 to 50% more efficient, is called Von, VON. And it essentially, all of the random questions, all the reports, all the dashboards, all of the things that you need to understand about a customer and opportunity that before you would need to run a Salesforce report for, or you'd have to wait for somebody from ops to come back to you. You can get it conversationally in minutes with Vaughn. It's trained on our data. We did need to make sure that it understood our context and our language and the way that we have information in Salesforce. It is fully integrated with all of our marketing and marketing channels. And it is also integrated with Dream Data, which does that customer journey element. Like, what are the elements of the various contacts and customers and how do they map together across this customer journey? But that's all available and accessible within one question and a few minutes in Vaughn. How we execute marketing, we're using Claude and Claude Design to throw up landing pages pretty quickly. We have a tool called Character Quilt that we build full end-to-end campaigns with in a matter of minutes instead of, maybe a week or two. I mean, we have AIified we are also an AI company. So there is an expectation that we are using these tools and that we're living and breathing it. So that definitely makes it easier. I have counterparts who are being told they're not allowed to use it, which blows my mind. But we've put it into every part of our business.
I just had a conversation with someone that there's like such a two ends of the spectrum, like companies that are really just like controlling what AI you use. And then there's like AI pilled companies where like everybody's using AI, and there's a little bit in the middle, but like I hear this both ends of the spectrum more than just the middle stuff. But I want to ask you, so what are you asking Vaughn on a daily basis? Like, what are the questions you're asking it? Like I just want people to know from the CMO lens, like you go to Vaughn and I'm asking these few questions because I want to get these answers today. Like, what is an example of that?
Oh man, I think I'm the number one user of it in the company. If I'm not, I'm going to have to up my numbers. But yesterday, for example, we lost a deal to a competitor. And I asked Vaughn to tell me how often was it a pattern? How often had we lost to the same competitor? I asked it to give me actual quotes from customers on calls about why they chose somebody else over us. And I asked it to also analyze the sales process. Like, how well run was the sales process? It came back in 15 minutes with a report that was shareable. I do still click in and verify. I still go to Salesforce and make sure it's pulling the right stuff because I'm still a little bit paranoid. I don't want to ever share something that was a hallucination. Luckily, Vaughn is right all of the time. But it was able to do something that would have probably taken a month before and provide an artifact that I was able to use to conversationally talk to my team and the sales team about what do we need to do differently. I converted that asset into an updated competitor battle card with some specific quotes about why it's really important that we change our positioning and messaging in one area. And then I sent it to Claude Design and converted it into a landing page and gave it to our ads team and said by the end of the day, or by the end of the week, I'd really like us to have some ads live in this category. And that's literally how everyone works. We had our team yesterday launched an event for the US Open. We wanted to start prospecting and getting it out. There were some optimizations that we needed to make on the page. We had a back and forth Slack. The team updated it, went live with it. This was all within an hour and a half.
Yeah. I mean, the old way is you submit a ticket to ops or analytics. Like, analytics will say you're fifth in line to get this. Then you have to fight and say, could you make this a priority? And then even if it's a priority, you'll get 2 to 3, 4 days. You'll get a report and then you want more and then you have to dig in for more. And then you're like 3 weeks away out and you lose another deal to the same competitor like 4 more times. And you're like, why did I could have got this answer. Now, like with AI, you get the answer in 15 minutes, which is insane. Right. I just want people to like know like that, like the ticketing, like your ticket is you asking Vaughn, that's your ticket request.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So I love the AI pill. What are some things that you had to do as a marketing org to make sure you had like clean data clean reports to make sure Vaughn was spitting out like the right things for you? Because I feel like there was probably had to do some like lifting before Vaughn was not like pulling out a report that like maybe had been dead 5 years ago, or like data that's been bad. I mean, every company has a little bit. Bloomreach is probably at the high end of like doing the right way, and then there's the other people who aren't. So for people who have like a messy stack or something, how would you recommend to make sure you do it before you like implement a Vaughn?
Well, this is the incredible news about LLMs, is like their ability to understand unstructured data. I mean, I think a lot of us have heard this by now, so I doubt I'm saying anything revolutionary, but LLM's ability to understand and build and draw context between unstructured data is pretty incredible. So with Vaughn, what we're really doing is teaching it our context layer, our taxonomy. So when we say opportunity, what is an opportunity? How do you actually identify that in the system? When we say closed won, what does that actually mean? Like, is it a stage? Is it a status? Is it those kinds of things? And so it's really like you're teaching the same way that you would a new hire. You're teaching them how to look at and understand the data itself. The cleanliness of the data, again, because it does such a great job with processing unstructured data and understanding context between various points of data, means that you don't really have to do a lot of cleaning up in the way that you would in the old days in order to get a report that was accurate. Because remember, in a report, you're selecting data fields and there's no intelligence behind that. It's just identifying whether or not the data field is populated with the response that you gave it. And if it is, it sends it to you. With Vaughn, for example, even if sales reps have entered a close loss reason, I can say, I don't want you to use the close loss reason that the rep has used. I want you to actually listen to the call recordings or read the notes in the opportunity and come back and tell me what you think the close loss reason is. So I think there's actually a much lower bar of data cleanliness and quality. And actually, if you have a quality and cleanliness problem, move faster on getting something AI embedded. But you definitely need to take time on the context on the training.
Yeah, so basically, I just like the audience, I think just like any new hire, you need to like set up like an onboarding doc or multiple onboarding docs that have like taxonomy, like what we want you to do here, like here's your role, like. I'm just simplifying, but you need some ways to like make sure that AI knows what you're talking about and knows your company and knows your context. Otherwise, it's gonna hallucinate a little bit, because they could say, you say closed won, and it could say like 15 different definitions in the ether what closed won means to. And different orgs have. Some people have MQL, some people have MDLs, and they have different acronyms and everything. Everybody's different with how they define things in their organization. So that's like the heavy lifting. But lucky it's probably easy because you could just like get AI to help you do that, because you could just, someone in the company knows all those answers. They could talk to it, like kind of meeting.
I don't know if I would call it heavy lifting. I'd probably call it more like hiring a mover.
Yeah.
It's pretty low effort on your part.
But I do think you said something really important, though. Is like, now that with AI, the multiple data sets that you could pull from, where it took so long, where you like had to trust an AE or you had to trust someone else to like give you an answer that might not have been true, or you could go back and say, like, in the sales call, they said like, they heard about us in a podcast, but this person says this. Like, you could say like there's multiple conversations happening, and before it would take hours to like look at closed loss for all the data, then go listen to all those calls, and then also go look at the reporting to see what the reports say. But now you could just ask it all of these questions and make sure it comes back in a clean report, however you like it, to make sure things are clean, which I think that's, and to be able to ask, like, to go into sales calls and stuff to do these things is super important. Is there any other things that you like when building reports, how are you like now thinking about like when you're building a reports to show the CEO or CFO like how marketing's doing, like, and they ask you a quick question, are you just asking Vaughn to like spit something up and send it to them, or like
No,
how are you
not
doing
even
it?
that. I gave our CEO Vaughn. And I said, you want to know how marketing's doing? Ask Vaughn. You want to know how sales is doing? Ask Vaughn. You don't want to know about pipeline? Ask Vaughn. Because I am completely comfortable being accountable for what our outcomes are. And our CEO is also our founder. So this company is his baby, and he's got the right to hold me and anybody else accountable. And so giving him access to a tool to be able to interact and ask questions and get data on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, where is marketing messing up, where is it not, and using that as a conversation starter rather than waiting on me to provide him a data set, I think has been incredibly powerful.
And going way back, I know you went through it for us, like your pipeline math, but what are what would you see as like the top 3 or 4 most important numbers to make sure you get it right in that pipeline math to make sure that like you're doing it this the right way? Because I think like there is like 1 or 2, like, because I think of like pipeline math as just like lever pulling, like, and then you can do a campaign to fix that lever pulling. I like to simplify marketing. When I was in marketing, I was like, you either need to pull lever to conversion stamp MQLs back in the day, or conversion to MQL to book meetings, or conversion. Like there's different levers that you could pull to like make sure your numbers are better. So what are like the most top 3 numbers that you think are the most important in that pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to revenue. So 100% start with revenue. That is the most important number, and I can't say that enough. Marketing should care the most about revenue, and that comes from new as well as your existing customers, and making sure that your customers aren't churning. There's 3 levers to revenue. How do I grow net new revenue? How do I grow revenue with existing customers? And how do I make sure I keep the customers I have? So make sure that you very well understand your revenue plan as a company and how you're going to grow. The next one is how good of a job are we doing winning these deals, and what do those deals look like? That's your win rate. But are we in the right kinds of companies? Are we talking to the right kinds of people? Is our positioning and our messaging and the way that we're making ourselves sound like the better option against our competitors, is all of that tight? And are there opportunities for us to optimize our win rate based on what we understand about that? And then obviously the next one is how do we have enough of top of funnel in order to generate the meetings that we need for those opportunities. So meetings to sales qualified opportunity rate. Obviously, then you would look at, you've got to increase this contact universe, this number of people that we're having meetings with, but you cannot sacrifice on the quality metrics of that. The meetings are good. They're with the right people, with the kinds of deals that you will eventually be able to close win, because the most important metric is revenue.
It also seems like, which some orgs aren't like this, like you have a really good understanding with like your sales partner to get that number. Like, cause I think like I've seen the sandbagging side of it, where like you ask the sales reps, what do you think? It's like this, the head of sales, like, what do you think that win rate is going to be? And they give you like 12%, but you know they could get 18% or like something. It's not that bad, but like they say 12%, but it's like 14%. But it seems like you have like a good like relationship with like your internal leaders to be able to get that revenue number, because it's hard for like only marketing to come up with the win rate, because there's some sales, unless you're owning sales.
No, I do not. I do not own sales.
How did you build that relationship with like those leaders to make sure like you're on the same page, like you understand what they understand, you're on the same page what quality looks like, you're on the same page of like revenue's a team game? Like what are the things you did to make sure like you build a relationship of trust on both sides that will deliver you quality if you do X?
I think when the sales leader knows that I know what I'm talking about, like they understand that I understand the business. When they recognize that I am their team member, I am here to help them hit revenue, and my only goal is revenue. I don't celebrate hitting our pipeline target if we don't hit our revenue target. Because again, at the end of the day, my job is to create enough at-bats for the team to hit their revenue target. It doesn't mean we don't have difficult conversations about what could sales be doing better or why is our win rate not improving. We also have conversations around, do we have enough money? Because often when you look at the GTM line item or an S&M line item in a financial plan, sales and marketing are bucketed together. And so we have a percent of revenue that is pretty standard for companies to invest in sales and marketing across the board. And so the conversation I can very easily have with a sales leader is like, okay, if you want to say win rate is 10%, and you want 10x created pipeline coverage is essentially what you're asking me for. This is how much that would cost, which comes out of our combined budget, which means you won't be able to hire sales heads. Now, if we can get that up to 15%, then I'm at 6x coverage, 20% 4x coverage. This is how much it would cost. That leaves budget for hiring solutions consultants and partner managers and AEs. And so I do constantly think that the pipeline math makes it a very unemotional conversation. We're centered on the same goal, which is revenue. We have the same boundaries, which is budget, and we figure out how to make that math work together.
I like how you said, but I think that's the way. I think saying like any sales leader, if you say like, okay, I need 10x coverage for like that win rate, and then you say like, if you just get a little lower, like you can hire a couple more reps, they're like, okay, fine, I could get it to 12%. Like, but you say like math is very unemotional, logical. Like it's like very logical to work your way back from that number. And I think that like the whole point of this conversation is like, you have to know these numbers and work back and make sure you're getting these numbers, because otherwise, like, this is where you can get into trouble, where you've like either overpromised because you didn't do the numbers. You didn't have the conversation with sales. So you didn't fight for like, you didn't fight for that 10x coverage of the win rate. But if you know these numbers behind, like, like in the back of your hand, it's easy to have these conversations with any leader, because it's a math problem, not like we need to look pretty in the market problem.
It is. Yeah. Marketing is a math problem. That is absolutely true.
I want to ask you, because I ask everybody on this podcast, what is a marketing hill you would die on?
I feel like I have lots of hills that I would die on. A marketing hill that I would die on. Briefs don't matter anymore. That's one that I talk about a lot. Don't get so attached to the idea that you lose the idea of the outcome. That's a marketing hill that I would die on. Creativity does not trump delivering performance.
I'll go a little bit. What is your opinion? Like, why? Because I'm kind of in agreement with the briefs conversation. So why do you believe like briefs don't need to exist?
I think the world with AI has changed so much to where, so a brief was a way to communicate an idea and a concept and a strategy so that other people could execute things. And we've really been able to, with AI, truncate what execution looks like. And so an idea can now be actually produced as an artifact. A brief can be produced as an artifact. You can go back and forth with Claude or Vaughn or a tool of your choice and actually create visually the concept of what you're trying to do and why, and even argue a little bit. Like, is this going to work to achieve this kind of objective? Can you connect to my data and help me understand if this is something that will succeed? So I think briefs, or maybe not even specifically briefs, but this concept of very structured, very intentional, very theoretical, almost cerebral communication in order to activate or test out an idea. I think that's unnecessary in today's world.
Yeah, because you could pretty much show like I would say like whatever the level up from a mood board is to like someone and be like, this is exactly what I want. Yes. Like if you want to, like, obviously like Claude Code could get you so far, but you do need engineers to do some things. But this is like, I want my website to look like close to, because I could now just brief AI. And it also takes out a lot of steps if you take out the briefing, because then it's like back and forth. So I like that. I like that take. lastly, where can people find you and what you're doing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me. I think it's / Amanda Joy Cole, but I'm on LinkedIn a lot. And otherwise, you can shoot me an email at amanda.cole@bloomreach.com. And feel free to give us feedback on our marketing after all this talk about how marketing is math and send me an email about it.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, let's go, and this is marketing's math. Let's go like judge creativity now with Amanda. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But thank you so much for coming on, and I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.